Well, good morning. Welcome to Grover Hill Zion United Methodist Church here at 204 South Harrison Street here in Grover Hill. We're glad you're viewing, and of course we hope this message will be helpful to you as you draw closer to God on your journey. This morning I want to talk with you about setting your mind on things above from Paul's letter to the Colossians chapter 3 verses 1 through 11. You know, many of us in this country have many possessions, and we keep accumulating more and more. We accumulate so much more than we can use, and after a while it just builds up, and we don't have any space for ourselves. I know even in my garage, my car sits outside, and things that don't have the value that the car has are inside the garage, and it just keeps getting filled more and more and more. So we don't have any space. We run out of space, and then we have garage sales, or we give things to Goodwill or Salvation Army or things like that just to get rid of that stuff so that we can improve our comfort in our space and we can have room to start all over again. Well, in spite of our excess, many people have a sense of emptiness within them. And they feel like something is missing in their life, and they have a sense of just not being filled. There's that emptiness deep down within inside, and they discovered that all the possessions in the world won't fill that emptiness inside of them. So the question is, how do you live a fulfilled life, the kind of life that you were designed to live by God who created you? The Apostle Paul tells us in his letter to the Colossians in chapter 3, set your hearts on things above. In other words, set your heart and mind on Christ. Put Christ first in your life, and you'll find everything you're looking for. Well, how do you put Christ first in your life? You do it by making God's will your will. In the prison recently, there's a huge man in there, great big man by the name of Big John. He was telling me some time ago that since he came to Christ, since he put Christ first in his life, he just has so much peace that he never dreamed was possible. He said, we spend our lives looking for peace, but Jesus is the only way to find peace. Jesus is the only one who can give you the kind of peace that he found. Rick Warren uses an acronym FIRST, F-I-R-S-T, to show us 5 things needed to put God first in your life. The F is finances. If you want God to bless your finances, even during a recession, you must tithe. Sorry, there's simply no alternative. The I is interests. Put him first in your hobbies, in your careers, in your recreation. Give God first consideration in every decision. The R is relationships. Put him first in your family, in your marriage, in your friendships. The S is schedule. That means you give him the first part of every day. You get up and sit on the edge of your bed. Some folks fall down on their knees and every morning and say, God, if I don't get anything else done today, I just want to love you just a little bit more and to know you just a little bit better. And the T is troubles. You know, you need to turn to God first when you have a problem. Prayer should never be the last resort. It should be your first choice. It's the strongest tool in the arsenal. Talk it over. What do you need to change so that God is first in your finances, in your interest, in your relationship, and in your schedule? What is your first reaction to trouble? How can you develop a habit of prayer in your life? You know, For me, I get up early in the morning. I'm an early riser, and so a lot of times at 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm out walking for 45 minutes. It's dark then, of course, a beautiful time of day. It's quiet. You look up and see the stars in the sky. Sometimes there's clouds in it. Sometimes it's overcast. Sometimes you can see a bright moon. Beautiful. And you see the shadows of the trees and all the vegetation out there. Sometimes you see wildlife in the city there. Beautiful, beautiful. And I start out complimenting God on how beautiful the works of his hands are. And then I walk with him and talk with him for a while. And I get in touch with him first thing in the morning. Let me tell you, it makes all the difference in the world if you do something similar to that. On June the 28th, 2016, a book called God in the Afterlife was published. It was written by Jeffrey Long, who was a medical doctor. Long researched and studied thousands of near-death experiences, and those things aren't as rare as you might think that they are. But many in the study were doctors and other healthcare people. Those who had near-death experiences, their hearts had stopped and their brains ceased functioning. They were, by all definition, dead. But in their death, they had a glimpse inside of heaven. And out of the thousands that he studied, he discovered that they all had similar experiences and encounters. Even those who did not know God or even believe in God, when they had a near-death experience, the next world was in a different realm. They tried to describe what they saw, but it was ineffable. There were no known words to describe what they saw. The most common things that they experienced were the overwhelming beauty of it all, or was the overwhelming beauty of it all. Unconditional love, knowing that they were forgiven, knowing that they were in the presence of God. When the vast majority of people returned to this life, they had a sense of peace and fulfillment that they had never, ever known. They put Christ first in their lives. They let love guide them day by day. Love was the most important thing on earth for them after that experience. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7 reads, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God, for God is love." These folks that had that experience had no desire to return to the way things were before they had their near-death experience. That love changed them. Love changes things, you know that? Both the one that gives it and the one that receives it. Love changes things. When you put Christ first in your life, all of those things, plus much, much more, are added unto you. Since you have been raised from the dead with Christ to a new life with Christ through baptism, Paul writes, set your hearts and minds on things from above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Don't deny yourselves, of course, the necessities of life, because we still have to live in this world. However, material possessions are not the most important things in life. So we're told not to crave those things more than anything. Don't covet the things that your neighbor has, because those things are just temporary. They will eventually rust and just fade away. But set your hearts and minds on things from above, for they are forever. They are eternal. The apostle tells us you died to your old self. Your life is now hidden with Christ in God. You know, when you hide something, you're trying to protect it, aren't you? When you hide something, you don't want anybody to find it. You want to keep it safe. Our lives are safe and secure because they are hidden in Christ, where no one can find them. Christ is everything. Christ is life itself. Apart from Christ, there is no life. I cannot tell you how many people I've heard say that they didn't know what life was until they discovered Christ. They have turned from their old ways and they began living for Jesus. As Christians, our speech is to be pure, and we are to be honest and above reproach. We are to rid ourselves of things like anger and fits of rage and slander and sexual immorality, filthy language, malice, greed, and idolatry. Greed is idolatry, Paul tells us. When we make an idol out of something, we expect to get something from it. Greed causes us to want more and more and more. Thus, Paul calls it idolatry. Throw that garbage in the trash. Whatever you've made an idol out of, get rid of it if it comes before Christ in your life. It's easy to say, isn't it? But it's much harder to do. But God enables us to get rid of those things that separate us from Him and to change our lives to live for Him. In Paul's day, the world needed mercy, perhaps more than anything. Christians brought mercy to a lost and dying world through those who focused their minds on things above, those who reached out beyond their walls to share the love of God with those in need. Things really haven't changed much in our world today over the centuries, have they? Paul still needed mercy, or people still need mercy, and they need hope. And they need to know that they're loved and needed and wanted. You know, I've talked with a number of people frequently who just need someone to show them mercy because they've been struggling under the pressures of life. They need someone to offer them and show them hope. They need someone to give them a lift up. They need someone just to listen to them, just to love them. They turn to the church because that's what the church is for. Those of us who put Christ first in our lives are called to carry on the world of Christ, sharing His love with everyone. You know, not reaching out beyond the walls is not God's design. That's not what He intends for His people. In the world, people oftentimes are concerned about small things, unimportant things. They place material things and temporal things before people who are created in God's image and likeness. They covet that which their neighbors have, and they lie and they cheat and they're dishonest. Christians, on the other hand, are not of this world. We are citizens of two worlds. Our world is here and we live in it, but our real home is above. Buildings, furniture, and material possessions, oh, they're nice, but they're tools to be used to glorify God, to care for God's people, and to share the love of Christ with those who do not know Him, and with everyone else, for that matter, even our own. What's really important in life? Paul gives us the answer here. It isn't anything that money can buy. It's setting your hearts and minds on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God the Father. There you find life and its meaning. Well, have a great and blessed week.